Hello, welcome to episode 21 of Mic Drop. I'm here with Nisha and Will as always. Hi guys.
Hello.
We've got a topic today that I'm particularly excited about because it involves CMAT, and we all know I'm a massive CMAT fan. But really, it's not actually about her. So I heard her on a podcast a few weeks ago on Sidetracked, which I recommend everyone goes and listens to. It's a BBC podcast about music and it's brilliant. But she was basically co-hosting this show, and part of what she talked about was lip syncing in live shows, and she just made this offhand comment being like, yeah, and just, no one in pop does a live vocal performance anymore. And the other host was like, sorry, what? Like, just come back to that. Apparently AI technology has advanced so far now that so little of the vocals we actually see are live performances. And I don't know about you guys, but this wasn't something I was aware of. I know we've seen AI come into all other kinds of the music industry, in production, sometimes even in like the performance that comes up on Spotify. But in my head, live music was kind of something that wasn't going to be tainted. So I was really shocked when I heard about this. And it's a lot more technical than I think I'm ever going to be able to get my head around. But it's basically, so singers, they can lip sync to a track, but it's not in the way that it used to be, where they'd have to have the studio recording. If they got distracted by something, if they took their microphone away from their mouth, then it was all over for them. Now AI can detect exactly what they're doing. They can detect when they actually sing into the mic, which means that the track cuts out. They can do crowd work, they can do ad libs, they can, add in an extra word, extra note, whatever they fancy, and then the second they stop singing, this track comes back on. So basically everything's really seamless now. I just feel like we can be fooled left, right and centre. And not only is this a bit crazy, but there's all kind of different talking points to me based on when it's appropriate to use. Like, if you guys would feel deceived if you went to like one of your favourite artist shows and you found out that they were using this technology, is that something that would sit right with you? I don't know, Will, how would you feel? I
I
know you're
think
so found. Could
I
you?
think it really I feel like we'll get this later on in the episode, but I remember like in the talking points like genre. I feel like that really matters. And I feel like a lot of artists give different performances. Like sometimes like artists there's some artists that are very good vocalists. If you want to go to an Adele concert, you're not expecting like a big dance break. You're gonna expect live vocals, like kind of how her Vegas shows where it was just her singing, walking around, interacting with the crowd. But say if you go to like a rap show, like a Kendrick Lamar show, or maybe like a Kanye show, you're not going to expect the same vocal capacity. So I think if you went to an Adele concert and you were getting these AI vocals, that would turn me off, like that would switch me off. Because at the end of the day, I feel like you came for the Adele vocals, you came for like Celine Dion in her prime, Whitney Houston. Like you want to hear these vocalists like belt and sing. But if you're going to a different genre, a different vibe, and it's maybe a little more like heavy on the performance, then I think there is a different expectation when it comes to that.
I think very much so. And I was trying to put it into perspective a bit with the artists I like. And I was thinking, if I found out someone like Adrian Lenker, like a really gentle acoustic player, was doing it live, then was not doing it live, was using the lip syncing technology, then I would be heartbroken. I'd be like, it all feels fake, like I've been sold a lie. But then actually, I'm thinking, if I was into someone like Beyonce, I know I've mentioned that it can be used when there's like intense choreography and someone's really out of breath. They can just switch it on for a little bit, so it gives them a bit of a break. That wouldn't bother me as much. I don't
Yeah.
know. Isha, have you got any artists that you'd be like, yeah? Or...
Yeah, I think I was again sort of when I heard about it, I was like putting it in like reference to artists that I like and that I'd like to see live. And in like rap music and say like hyperpop music, it's very difficult to like do that all live. Um and a lot of the time they use a backing vocal. And I don't know if they're using this sort of AI technology thing or if it's just like the classic backtrack in the background and speak when you feel like it. Um, and I think the main difference between a good show like that and a bad show like that is the kind of energy they're giving it. Because, like, if they're just like sort of mumbling around the stage when they do actually speak into the microphone, that's kind of less enjoyable than someone who's like giving it all, jumping around the stage, sort of performing, as opposed to just like up there doing God knows what.
Yeah, I think for me as well, like this whole technology, it doesn't change like amazing performers. Like it's not really going to help them in a way, but maybe those that aren't great on stage, it kind of just raises them up. So I feel like it makes maybe what someone could perceive to be like a bad performance, it can make them better rather than stopping like better artists from not doing as well. I feel like it kind of just helps them out and like raises the bar in that kind of way rather than being like a massive hindrance. But obviously, there is that deceit and like almost being lied to. Like, obviously, when CMAT mentioned that no one sings live anymore, what? Like, even like hearing it before and you just said it then, I was still like, what?
Yeah, and I'm sure, I mean, she's a very dramatic individual. I'm sure that there's some drama involved in that. I bet a lot of people are still doing live vocals, but it's crazy that it's creeped into this extent where she's saying like most of the pop industry are not giving you live vocals anymore. I do think one angle I looked at it from as well is that she was saying the expectation on live vocals now has completely changed in terms of obviously even people that do singing for a living, singing live every night is really hard, and there's going to be times you miss notes, there's going to be times your voice is sounding a bit strained, there's going to be times you're ill and like you can't belt to the same capacity. And she was saying there's all these videos now looking at like how far people have come, like pop stars, how much their vocals have improved over the last few years. And she was like, actually people are just losing sense of what a live vocal sounds like now, and people are sometimes commenting on CMAT's videos being like, this sounds bad, she's shouting, blah blah blah, and she was like, I'm actually just not enhancing my voice, and people are losing perspective of that now.
I find that really crazy to think about. Like, it is not like just progression. It's not a progression of an artist. It's more of the technology. And I feel like, yeah, that is really weird to think about.
Yeah, it wasn't something I'd thought about. Like when I hear people live, I've never thought, oh, that suddenly changed a lot. Like in my head, I just assume people get better at performing over time, but it sounds like
Yeah.
some big head start.
Because I remember there was always like a clip from I think it's one of Lord's like earlier tours. I don't know if it was for Melodrama or I think it was for Melodrama, but there's like a moment of her singing Writer in the Dark and she like shushes the crowd.
I
She
have.
sings Writer in the Dark and she like tells the crowd to shush and her vocals weren't the greatest. And that kind of has almost haunted her in a way. That has really haunted her throughout her career because the amount of times I'll see that pop up like just every couple of months. And then you see her on like the Virgin tour, her most recent tour. Now she's on this festival run. Like it's very different. And my assumption would be just her growth as a performer, as an artist. But in reality, it could just be this technology we do not know about.
Yeah. And I guess it takes away that risk factor of what you were talking about with Lord, where, it doesn't matter how good of a vocalist you are, there's going to be days where you just are completely, completely out of tune. And like with the internet now, like it's ruthless. Like that could ruin your career. Like that, I even just think back to like when I was in this one band, the bassist for it, she had this really high harmony, and 9 times out of 10 she could hit it beautifully. And there was this one performance she didn't, and one of her friends got it on video, and it literally like she wouldn't sing that song again for like years. It's just even in like such a that we're not performing in Wembley, but just that like knock of confidence can they're still humans, aren't they? They don't
Yeah.
need. What do you think? Have you seen any stinkers recently online?
No, but that Lord one, it really does. It sticks in your brain, and it's just
Yeah.
I like it. It's a cringe or something like that. I don't know what it is. Um, but no, I think like because I'm into like a lot of like underground rap music. I think I see some artists that are, because there's a lot of drugs in that sort of place, or that sort of genre. Um, like some of the performances are just quite bad because they're a lot of these people, it's their, if say they're like booked for a festival, it's their first sort of big performance, as well as being sort of off their heads. And someone that sticks out for me is, I saw a lot of his tour videos, was Fake Bink, and I've spoken about him before on the podcast, and I just think he's so low energy. It's like just the backing track, and it's just a bit like, and I get it, people are young and they're being sort of thrown into this like fame thing, but I think maybe skip the drugs until afterwards if that's going to be the performance, because it's just, it's not great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm even thinking someone like Matty Healy, where he's gone through stages where a lot of his performance has been just kind of wobbling around the stage and like screaming into the microphone. I wonder if that technology, I don't know, I haven't seen the 1975 in a while, but I wonder if that technology had been around back then, if he'd have bought into that, or maybe he wanted that deliberately slightly crazy unhinged sound. I don't know.
I was gonna say, yeah, because sometimes that might be the vibe. It generally depends on, like, again, like I mentioned it before, the genre. Like, it does matter a lot when it comes to the type of performance you expect.
I do feel like this is something we say quite a lot. We seem like technology seems to be so tied into genre, and I think with pop, because so much of it is about the performance, like we're not necessarily looking at the vocals on their own, or like the songwriting, we just love a performance. And I feel like quite often we say, well, whatever makes it look good, whatever's entertaining to people is kind of what takes the forefront with that.
Yeah.
I think as well though, you sort of really notice when it is a good vocal performance. Like someone that always stands out to me, and I've seen like her sound checks as well, is Zara Larsson. And I think her vocals, I think she performs most of them live, because I've seen the sound checks and it is like perfect. And she's doing a lot of big choreography as well. So I always notice that her performance is always really good and sort of vocally sound. So I think we might not think when, if there's a backing vocal or something, but I think we really notice it when it is such a good, tight live performance.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of what I was mentioning before. Like it makes like bad performances better, but it doesn't stop the good performance from being great in that kind of way of they won't use this technology. And to be fair, I feel like even though we don't notice it, I feel like you can tell when it's fully live vocals. Maybe, but we maybe can't see where the AI comes in and that technology comes in, but we can definitely tell when it's fully real. And I think that's possibly the argument there. Because I mean, you mentioned Zara. I think she hits that like the Midnight Sun, high vocal, the Stateside, the Lush Life. But I feel like she's always, even before she kind of grew into the stardom that she's in now, I always knew her as somewhat of a vocalist and be like a really good pop vocalist. And it's now that she probably has songs that are harder to sing now. Like I mentioned, both Stateside and Midnight Sun, which are recent tracks in her like discography. So I feel like she's challenging herself more, and that's just like helping her when it comes to live performances.
Yeah, I know CMAT was saying there's kind of
Mhm.
3 options for pop artists. Now they either use this technology, they accept that they're going to have some stinkers, or they're like training on treadmills every day, like really, really pouring their heart and soul into like making sure that their vocals are on point every single night. So, there are going to be some people that are just working and working and working. And I wonder if in some ways, I kind of want to know who these people are. It's not that I'm going to
Yeah.
hate on the people that are using the technology, but it is just like nice to know who's still got that real like proper artistry going on, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's why when it comes to, like, I'm going to use Beyonce as an example, when it comes to, like her Homecoming Netflix documentary, that shows a lot of the behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you'll get a concert film and it's just the concert, basically packaged up as a movie. But then you'll have these cutaways to the build up, how much time it took, and like the entire process of organizing everything and bringing it all together. And I think to see that behind the scenes is powerful because like Oh no, they actually like worked on months for this. Like I think like she worked on 6 months, years for this one performance.
Yeah, I guess it's all about, all artists work hard. It's just about which bit they're specifically pouring
Yeah.
hard work into, I guess. I guess as the conversation's kind of coming to a close a bit, I guess, should we end it on
Ooh.
who would you guys be most disappointed by if you found out they were using this technology?
I'm not too sure because I feel like Adele, like when I mentioned that earlier, I'd be so
Mm-hmm.
disappointed by that. Of she is such an amazing vocalist, and then if you to see her live, it is just gonna be like, what? Like you
Mm-hmm.
just don't expect it. You really don't. Where in that sense, like for me, I've seen her twice, and like she is an amazing vocalist, but also she puts on like a really like she puts on a long performance and she's got a lot going on. So I could see her possibly using it, but I also doubt it. In my mind, I know she probably wouldn't. Going
Mm-hmm.
into that concert, I'd be like, no, she wouldn't. But also reflecting back, like maybe a couple of months from the concert, could be like, oh no, I can see why because she has so much going on.
Yeah,
But I
no.
think in that moment, it will hit and be like, oh, like I wouldn't want her to do this, but I can understand the reasoning possibly, you know?
Yeah, I guess it's quite different if you've been to see the show because then you've got that.
Yeah.
So I think you want to hope that they're giving you the live vocals, even if not.
Yeah.
What about for you, Nisha? Is there anyone you'd be heartbroken?
I think the 1975, which you mentioned, Katie, I think sort of the charm of their live shows is how he's just being weird. And I think if that was sort of cut through with like this AI technology, I feel like, oh, and I've seen them as well like 3 times already. So if I was to see them again and it was just completely different and lacked that sort of, over the top weird charm, I think it would hurt for me, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd have to say, do you know Billy Martin? She's like a solo folk singer.
I
Just
don't.
I've heard of it very briefly.
she's I've seen her live a couple of times, but it's all about her and the guitar and the voice, and I just think, I mean, she's not even hitting crazy notes anyway, so I'd be a bit like, why are you doing it? And she's also still on the stage, so again, I probably couldn't find many excuses for it, but just to think that what was coming out of her mouth wasn't created in that moment, I'd be a bit devastated. I can't lie.
Yeah. I just want to say like quickly, briefly before we end the episode, I think it's important to have spaces kind of like Saturday Night Live with their music performances as well as like tiny desk concerts that kind of strictly prohibit any kind of like live tuning. I know SNL allow backing track, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they allow this kind of technology. And then tiny desk concerts, I remember, I think Pink, when she went on, like Pink Pantheress, when she went on, she was very nervous because she always sings with auto-tune, even during her live performances. But she strictly was not allowed to at a Tiny Desk concert. They were like, no, you got to do it live or don't do it at all. So I think it's good that we do have these spaces we can turn to almost like they will put their foot down and be like, no, you got to do it live. That's the whole, oh my gosh, that's the whole premise of the show. That's the whole premise of the concert. So I think it is great that we do have these spaces, and hopefully this technology doesn't invade those spaces just to
Yeah.
get that full like acoustic feel or that full live feel, because that's at the end of the day, that's the full intention.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think as long as those spaces continue to exist, then you're always going to have that contrast. And as long as people are listening to them, you're going to hear what live music sounds like. And then
Yeah.
even if you're still loving these big concerts, you've still, at the end of the day, can come back to these performances that are completely real. So I think that's a really good point as well.
Yeah, because for the most part, those spaces are really intimate. Like even though SNL is broadcasted to millions, like in the US, the actual like studio itself is quite intimate.
Yeah.
And then same with Tiny Desk Concert, that's very intimate in itself. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it is like you mentioned, like the big stages, the big concerts, maybe it's used there. But in these intimate settings, does it need to be used? I don't think so. And that's where like producers on those shows can step their foot down and be like, no, we don't want to.
As well, like how great it is that we have these spaces for like in like modern, like the Tiny Desk and like SNL and sort of real life performances. I think as well it sort of makes me think of sort of the opposite, and it's where sort of in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, people were expected to lip sync. And it sort of reminded me of some like really famous performances, like the Mamas and the Papas. They were being made lip sync their song, and Michelle Phillips, she just ate a banana. And obviously you could hear her singing, but it was very clear that it was lip syncing because she was eating a banana. And it sort of it showed that sort of artists wanted to perform live. And I think that that might be something that we're kind of missing as well. There was one on MTV where Nirvana, sort of the band were being made sort of pretend to play their instruments. So what they did is they were just like faking it so obviously. And then Kurt Cobain sort of did the lyrics really weirdly as well, just sort of in protest because people wanted to perform live, and I think that's something people should still want to do.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're an artist. I feel like it is part of your job in a way. I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
different sides to it. I know we talked about exceptions, but it'd be nice if they still had that drive to want to show off their skills, really.
Yeah, and it's like, is it an artist choice or is it like a choice from the label?
Yeah, exactly. I guess that.
Because they want to do it from a commercial standpoint of they don't want an artist to strain their voice because so they continue on with the tour. But is it their own personal choice or is it like a commercial choice? Is it a business choice? Is it the label that's behind this AI technology and an artist using it? Um, could we possibly see like an uproar from artists and being like, no, we don't want to use this, we want to perform live. So I feel like that could be something, especially if a lot more artists start to get on. Um, Obviously this technology will evolve, and I mean, right now it seems almost seamless, but it is just going to get better.
Hmm.
So it depends. Is it a label choice? Is it an artist choice? And I mean, that could be something down the line in like years to come. We could see almost like a fight back against that.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like we've learnt some pretty interesting things this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be back again next week with a new topic to discuss. In the meantime, check out our website. We've got new articles going up every single day. I think we've got several going up a day at the moment. So you've got a lot
Yeah.
to keep you entertained in the meantime. And I'll see you
Um,
guys next week.
See you guys. Bye bye.
Bye.